Thanks so much, Damien and everybody, and I'm sure you have heard from me too much since yesterday, and the main purpose of my slides and presentation is just to quickly, set the frame for this session. And yesterday and today, we have run through the short to medium term kind of objectives in setting the fiscal policy and the PFM reforms in our countries. But for these sessions, we'd like to suggest you to step back a bit, like this morning, rethinking about the role of fiscal governance. And through these few slides, I'd like to walk you through actually the trajectory of growth in a lot of countries around the world and also in our member countries, just to have a reflection of what has been working well and what may not be working that well. Knowing that no one size fits all, it's just a reference, just a step back, reviewing this experience. So, and whenever you use the words fiscal governance, that means the fiscal policy plus the PFM part become fiscal governance for growth. So I've run through three things. First, the aspirational stories of what we call the 13 growth miracles around the world. For countries who have run from low income to middle income status to high income status in 20 to 25 years. And among these 13 growth stories, actually in our PEMNA group, we have 5 out of 13 stories, which is great, but let's look at them. And then secondly, I'd like to also brief you on what has been the main findings from the very recently published World Bank Development Report called the Middle Income Trap, which was released last year, to see also the common features of the success stories, but also even some failure stories and what we can learn from. And last, I would end with just a few suggestions for us when we think about designing our comprehensive fiscal governance package for short to medium to longer term. So aspirational story, who are they? So you see the 13 success stories where we have seen this major growth and success in the durations from 20 to 30 years. And among that, we have partly China, Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan, China as part of the 13. But we have also Indonesia, we have Korea here, we have Malaysia, and we have Thailand. And the main feature of that, of course, there are multiple factors of explaining the success. There is this big report that I would like you to refer to. It's the Growth Report. Very helpful, very informative. But among all these success factors, partly sustainable public finances and high investment. In the very early day, high investments remains to be the top contributing factors for the growth history. And this graph just to show how high. So basically, these countries have to maintain at least 7% of GDP for public investment alone, not to mention the gross economy investment in the economy, but the public investment alone has been accounting for at least 7% consistently over 25 years in these countries. Apparently, it's very clear cut, but these graphs also show you that capital accumulation remains the most important factors in the early stage of development. So you can see this is the growth accounting charts that shows the contributions of different factors, whether it's labor, it's human capital, it's the financial capital, and the contributions of the TFP into the growth accounting. And a part of that, the investment and the capital accumulation, which is in the gray bar, is still the most important in this growth story. Of course, it's a lot about the volume, and the next question would be, how about efficiency? Now, what are the key findings from the Middle Income Trap report that I mentioned? Critical reflection. And why we have this critical reflection? Because now let's step back and think of the ambitions we are having in our member countries. We have Cambodia set to achieve the upper middle income status by 2030, and then high income status by 2050. That means, 4 times or 5 times higher the GDP per capita in just a few years' time, right? Of course, we have China reaching there, but then aiming at the median level of per capita of the developed nations by 2035, which is greatly expanding from the middle and greatly expanding the middle class. And my colleagues Minza will speak more to the China's experience. Of course, we don't have India here, we don't need to talk to it, but we have Malaysia, also very close to achieving the high income status as set by 2028. And then after reaching the middle income status, upper middle income status in 1996 and the lower ones in the 70s. So basically Malaysia has been with the middle income status for almost 50 years by now. And the good news is that it looks like it's not falling into the trap. So what has been the key success stories behind that, and that's why we will hear also from the Malaysia experience later in the day. And we have Vietnam, as we discussed just now, setting, to become high-income country by 2045, which marks the 100 years of the independence from 1945. And very realistically, Vietnam will reach the upper middle income status in 3 years' time, according to latest projection. So the aspirations are very high. We call them very ambitious, but we do think that it could be achievable with certain kind of measures. But just to look around the world, getting rich, that rich is not easy. So we should really be proud of ourselves, of East Asia Pacific being such a dynamic region. But the reason why I still want to project this, because while we are talking about these success stories, we know that we have a mixed group here. We have a very diverse group here. We still have countries trying to move from low income to middle income here. So that's why many of you ask questions towards your aspirational stories. But at the same time, we also have countries that are already in the middle income status, but potentially might face some risks if not managed well in order to get to the high income status. So globally, it's not easy. This is the chart pulling from the 108 middle income countries by World Bank definition. And you see most of them, the average of the 108 countries, they are stuck in the middle income status for more than 50 years. Right? That means getting out of it is not that easy. And the key success factor, and we'll talk about how to align the fiscal governance with this success factor. But what has been the former knowledge around the world? Originally, people thought that, let's pump a lot of investment, let's do a lot of capital accumulation in the early days, and then they can jump to innovation. And that has been the story of Brazil, which failed. You see, we have two interesting stories here. We have Korea and we have Brazil. So Korea managed to avoid the middle income trap and move straight into high income status in 25 years. While at the same time, you see that Brazil had went down with its very various ambitions of going straight to the innovation part, leapfrogging. And of course, if we go into the details, you will see that lots of fiscal policy promoting innovations, a lot of funds, etc., too fast into the innovation part. The success story it's actually two transitions, not just one. So usually among these 108 countries and the success stories, we see that countries have to go from very high investment accumulation to a stage of investment accumulation plus infusion. And infusion here is not just the infusion of technology, but the infusions with a lot of new ideas and good practice elsewhere. Countries like Vietnam, presenting just now, is the combination between the very high investment from the beginning to the stage of investment and infusion now, and in parallel trying to innovate as much as possible. But the experience shows that any policy, including fiscal policy, have to support this infusion stage very strongly before supporting the innovation stage. And here we have three success stories. We have Korea, we have Poland, and we have Chile. Have done successfully this infusion policy. And of course, we don't need to go into the detail, but when you think about fiscal governance, let's think of how fiscal governance can best support this infusion stage, not just jumping straight into innovation. And from that, you will see that we have some suggestions for low-income countries moving to lower income countries, moving to upper middle income countries. We have different suggestions, for a policy suggestion for different group of activities for each of these group of countries. And also think of the fiscal incentives, think of the financial incentives that supports both the incumbents, the growing sector in your economy, as well as support the new entrants to the economy. There are very interesting discussions around it in the Middle Income Trap report, which I really encourage you to read. But how to use fiscal incentive to move from having the new entrants and the incumbents not to confront with each other, but actually to work with each other and make economic progress. And this kind of principle will be reflected in each and every part of the policy that we discuss. We can use this principle. And also, major shifts will be needed in the thinking, in the data, in the policy design. And instead of thinking just about volume, thinking about efficiency and resilience in this global context. We discussed a lot about fiscal risk management. We discussed about managing the demographic changes from the aging population. Think about that. Also, instead of thinking of the size of the actors, let's think of the value additions of the actors and how fiscal governance support this value addition of these actors. And moving from the usual inequality kind of mentality to social mobility. Try to target fiscal impact with the end user, with those very vibrant migrants that are moving around in your countries, not to align them with any specific geographical location, but align the support, align the policy to those who are moving around in the country. So very briefly, some suggested way forward. Again, no one size fits all, but going back to the usual investment accumulation start, and then to the policy reaction. We discussed this morning, problem-solving approach, policy focus, outcome-led approach. How would it look like in fiscal governance? So again, continue making the capital stock. This is like textbook. But look at us, we are still far behind to peers, to competitors in terms of the capital stock and the infrastructure quality, right? Competitiveness, even though we are very dynamic, we are still lagging behind. So there's a lot of room to improve in terms of the infrastructure quality and the competitiveness in each of the countries. Look at the quality, infrastructure quality in each of us. You see the score, which is still below some other regions. But more importantly than the volume is the efficiency. Everybody knows that this chart shows a demonstration of the declining efficiency, and I call, of course, it's not perfect, but it's a kind of a measure to look at that. After this miracle growth period, all countries would expect, a declining rate of returns and increasing ICOR. So be prepared of that and continue to work on the institutions that help to promote the investment efficiency to the extent possible. All the measures supporting the allocations of resource, execution of resource, delegation in the context of decentralization, as we discussed just now. Look at that. EAP is highly decentralized. How to ensure that the sum is greater than the whole of all its parts, but also to make sure that the delegation is actually working in your country. So, and then apparently we not forget all this green transition and climate adaptation. That requires a whole new set of fiscal policy and governance arrangements to support this. And we have all the ambitions here in our member countries. By reaching net zero, I have made statistics on all of this. And the efficiency of the PEM cycle, it's classics, and we can go into deep into one of the thematic discussions. And I'm not jumping into the details, but let's really hear from our group here, the China experience, the Korea experience, the Malaysia experience, and having a very candid kind of open discussions. But this problem-driven, policy-focused approach to us, has been very well applied in the case of China and Korea. And you heard, you will be hearing from Min Zhao how the Chinese government has designed different phases of reform aligning with the different stage of economic development. Remember all this investment, infusion, innovation. So you have the early stage, you have the opening up, you have the expansion, you have the development, and you have the low carbon development. And each of the stage, Min will share with you how the Chinese government have designed the fiscal policy aligning with its policy, development policy priorities. The Korea experience we heard from Mr. Yoon this morning. I don't need to recap here, but he have said it very clearly. I just want to bring it back to you. What are the key problems Korea is trying to address, and what are the key solutions? And here I have 2 slides on it. The growth fund, with the growth ambition, Korea has put in this fiscal, catalyst into the growth fund we see this morning, or going through the fiscal structural reforms for short, medium to longer term we heard this morning. Just want to put it here as good examples for us to really reflect on this problem-solving approach and the policy-focused approach that we've been discussing about. So with that, let me just stop this kind of framing presentation. No recipe, no one-size-fits-all, just some thinking and reflection. Thank you.